Today we're going to be talking about Spell Saga, and more specifically, I'm going to be answering questions to help you decide whether or not you want to buy it or not. So essentially what I've done, I've scoured the internet for questions from people who seemed like they were interested in buying the game, but they were kind of on the fence and they weren't sure if it was for them or not. So I took those questions, added in some of my own, combined them, and now I'm going to answer them here for you today. So I should mention before we get going, I did receive a review copy of this game from the publisher. That being said, all opinions are my own because my ethical compass cannot be swayed. So if you enjoy content like that, consider subscribing to the channel. Other than that, let's dive in. So question number one. You know what's interesting? I would normally start with what is it? But for Spell Saga, I think what we need to start with is where do I even start? Because I mean, look at all of this. There is a lot of stuff in this game. And personally for me too, when I was looking into the game, I was kind of unsure on, okay, where do I even start myself? So the game is described as a tabletop novel, and the way I like to think of it is like a book, right? So chapter 1 of a book is analogous to deck 1, The Highlands of Spell Saga. Chapter 2 of a book is analogous to deck 2, The Forest of Spell Saga. And then there's chapter 3 of a book, which would be like Spell Saga deck 3, The Caves. That's not out yet. That's coming soon. And then I believe there's also a chapter 4, which is going to be deck 4, The End, which, go figure, that's probably going to be the end of the story. So those are the base decks. And then on top of that, because we still have more here, just like any prolific author, sometimes to give their readers backstory to the world that they're in, they come up with like a prequel book or something of the sort. So in Spell Saga, that's where we have this little guy, my friends. And this is the Prelude deck for Spell Saga. And it's recommended that, we'll see if we can get it to stand. Nice. Very skinny. So it's recommended that you only do that Prelude deck after you've played the base game a little bit, and that is a solid recommendation. And if that wasn't enough for you, we also have, think of like a movie when they come out with the director's cut where they have their original movie that's actually published, and then afterwards they come out with the super long director's cut with all these extras. That's what this deck is. So this is the expansion to deck 1, The Highlands. And the way this guy works is it's essentially a shuffle-in expansion, and you would shuffle it in to deck 1, The Highlands, to give you a massive, huge beginning experience to the world of Spell Saga. So with all that being said, what I personally did, I started with deck 1, The Highlands, which is where you should start because that's the beginning of the story. And I played it a few times until I figured out how to beat it. And then once I beat this deck, I immediately wanted to dive into the next deck. So after I did that, I went into deck 2, The Forest of Spell Saga. Played it one time, got utterly destroyed. Pretty bad. And then at that point, I kind of thought, you know what? I've got a feel for the world that I'm in right now, and I kind of want to know more about the backstory. So at that point, that's when I dove into this Prelude deck right here. And this Prelude deck, it's a really quick game, I guess you would say. So I dove into the Prelude deck, and it does as promised. It gives you a little bit more backstory to the world. So I played that one, and then after that, I was like, okay, good. I'm satisfied with the Prelude. Let's move back to the game. So then I went back to deck 1, The Highlands, the base deck. So all in all, start with this guy, deck 1, The Highlands. Okay, that being said, what in the world is Spell Saga? So in Spell Saga, the world has ended. And even though it's ended, there's still people in this world, but the only motivated people that are left are what we call the minstrels, and that's a fancy term for musicians. I had to look that up because my vocabulary is tiny. So anyways, there's these minstrels, and what they are doing is the minstrels essentially travel the world, and they're just exploring and seeking the truth behind what actually happened to the world. And in this game, our starting hero is the last minstrel. This person right here. So essentially what you're doing is, and this is the neat thing about Spell Saga, because all you're told is the world's ended, you're the last minstrel, and your only objective that you're given is to explore and seek truth. That is it. Other than that, you have no idea what you're doing. It does not tell you how to beat a game, how to beat the deck, what you're even trying to do. It's just explore, travel, learn, go. And then if you run out of health, you die and your journey's over. And that's one of the very special things about this game, is just that trying to figure out, okay, how do I actually beat the deck? So with that being said, you kind of probably want to know how to play the game, huh? So a basic turn structure, and it's really clean. So to start your turns, you're going to put your tokens on an adjacent place pile. Once you put them on the place pile, what you're going to do next is, and the game, because it only comes in a card box, right? So there's nothing other than cards in this box. So what you need to do is you need to choose any sort of tokens, right, to represent your hero. I decided to choose dice because who doesn't have dice? They're easy to use. So I've used dice to represent my hero. I put that token on an adjacent place pile, and then what you get to do is any items that you have, if any of them were face down, they'd be face down because you used them on a previous turn, you get to flip them face up, and now they're unexhausted. Afterwards, you got to read any rules that are on that place card. So it might just be flavor text, or it might actually have things that you need to do. And there might be mandatory rules, there might be optional rules, and sometimes what's going to happen is the rules on that place card, they're going to break the rules of the game. If that happens, go with it. Just go with whatever the place card says. And that's one of the beautiful things about this game, because there are base rules, and then it can be broken as you go. So read the rules on the place card. Then after that, you're going to go to the singular deck, and then you're going to draw one card per hero that's in play. And what you're going to do is you have a choice now. You can either draw the card, keep it face down, and put it in your source pile. So the source pile essentially represents how much money that you have. It's the currency in the game, and it's used to buy things. So you can put it face down into the source pile, or if you don't want to do that, flip it face up and then add it to your hand. And now when there are cards in your hand, you can purchase them, you can do whatever you wish with them. So after that, now you're kind of in the action phase of this place. So you're going to go back to that same deck, flip one card face up per hero that you have in play. And again, you only start with one hero. So what that means is as you get more heroes that you're with, the game ends up playing quicker. So you flip that card face up, you look at it, and then now you got to determine whether or not that you can actually acknowledge that card. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the number that's in the top left of that card, and if the number of story cards that you have in the story pile are equal to or greater than that number that's on that card, it is now acknowledged, and it now exists. The neat thing about that is because the more story cards you have, that essentially represents your hero's knowledge throughout their journey. So the more story cards there are, the more knowledgeable you are, and the higher cost cards that you can now acknowledge and then do with what you wish. But if you don't have enough story cards and you can't acknowledge that card, then nothing happens. You just put it face down and put it back underneath the deck. And that, in a nutshell, is a turn overview. I mean, there might be an enemy that you draw, right? So if you draw an enemy, you got to battle them too. But other than that, that's the basic turn structure of this game. And what I like about it so much, it's very clean, and it plays really, really, really quick. Once you start getting the feel down, and it's neat because these are the base rules, and like I've alluded to, you can also break the rules, right? So there might be items that you get that allow you to search through the deck, or different place cards, or people that you meet as you travel on your journey. They might let you search for certain items throughout the deck, or they might allow you to put some things in play that you might not actually have the money to actually put in play. And it's neat as you play through that, being able to essentially have this central rule structure to how the game works, and then to slowly modify it and break it as you keep playing more and more. So that being said, the next question is, can it be played multiple times? And I only think of this question just because I keep describing it like a book, right? So just like a book, I like to think of this game as more of like a whodunit, right? So if you're looking at a whodunit type book, or even like a whodunit type movie, with those types of movies, you can't take away from that first time you experience it. There's something special, right? The experiencing, okay, well, who actually did do the murder, or what happened here, and actually learning what happened. There's something special with that first experience, and it's tough to replicate. But what's neat about Spell Saga is even though after you figure out what you need to do to get past this deck and continue on to your journey, what's neat is because it's a deck of cards that you're playing with, you have no control over that deck of cards, right? Because sometimes they're going to be put face down into the source pile, your health represented in the armor pile, those are going to be face down too. So even though I know the end goal, I've got these mystery cards here that I've got no idea. Maybe that's the card I actually need to do what I need to do to get to the end. And it's neat because I've played deck 1, the Highlands, probably 4 times now. And even after I figured out what to do, how to get to the end, it was different every single time. And the most recent time I played it, I thought, okay, I got this down, whatever. And then the end result, how I got there, that journey to get there was just wildly different than I imagined. And it's just it's a treat. So can you play it multiple times? Yes, absolutely. Okay, and that kind of begs the question, do I need all the decks to enjoy this game? So the way I like to think of it, I don't think you need all of the decks to enjoy it. You obviously need just the base deck, deck 1, the Highlands, to enjoy this game. But I think if you think you're gonna like this game, I would go ahead and dive in and get base 1 or deck 1 and deck 2, because I think what's gonna happen to you, and this is what happened to me, is right when you figure out how to beat deck 1 and you actually do it, you're going to immediately want to dive into deck 2. And I think you're going to be kicking yourself if you didn't get both of those decks from the get-go. And the only reason I mention that is because, without ruining too much, like I mentioned, this game, I keep comparing it to a book. And just like a book, whatever happens in chapter 1 of a book carries over and does affect what happens in chapter 2. So without saying too much, it's like I said, once you beat deck 1, you're gonna be hankering to dive into deck 2. So that being said, you know, for your initial foray into this world, the Prelude deck is nice. Personally, once I played it, I figured out how to beat it. I kind of thought, okay, I'm good. I got what I wanted out of it. I got the extra lore, the backstory. That's nice. You don't necessarily need this. It's just a nice treat. It might be something you pick up afterwards, after you've kind of dove into nice. Let's stand up. Kind of after you've dove into both deck 1 and deck 2. And then this expansion deck here, right? The expansion to deck 1. That one, again, I don't think it's something that you need immediately. I think it's something that, hey, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of deck 1 and deck 2, like a lot. So I think after you've kind of beaten these decks to death, that might be the point when you want to start thinking, okay, well, let me get this expansion deck and then let me expand chapter 1 of my story even more so. But just for starters, I don't think the expansion deck's necessary. So that being said, what did I think of it? My final thoughts. And if you can't tell just the way I'm talking about this game, I love this game. This game is fantastic. It's man, it's something special. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like I said, how your goal is unknown. It's just to travel and explore. That feeling of just wandering and exploring and just trying to grasp at any kind of clues to figure out, what am I supposed to do? How do I even get to the end of this? Can I beat it? Like, what the heck even happens? That, man, the emotions that invokes, it's just, I don't think I've experienced something like this in a card game. I just remember my first playthrough, just at one point I literally got a feeling of just, like, I was like wandering around, like, man, I was like, what the heck am I gonna do? And just being so excited when I discovered new locales, new places, and it was, it is special. And it's the emotion that evokes, and like I've even alluded to too, right? Like the replayability of this game is, I thought, and this is why I've played that first deck like 4 times, because I thought, okay, once I figure it out, truly, it's gonna get old, right? Like I thought in my head, okay, I know the end goal, I know how to get to it, but it's continued to amaze me every time I've played it, just how I'm always getting to it in a different manner, or I'm discovering new cards that I never used the previous time, and then I thought, oh wait, you know what? Maybe I can use this card now to then help me get to this, or maybe this is a different way I can do it, and just kind of experimenting with different cards and combinations like that, and it's been really nice, and I've personally, I am very excited for whenever they come out with the remainder of the decks for this, because it's this is a treat of a game, and it's nice. And oh man, I don't even know if I mentioned this, but it's a solo only game, and it's just man, it's a treat. You can tell so much care has been taken into this game. So anyways, that's my final thoughts on Spell Saga. Hope my overview of this game helped you determine whether or not it's a game for you or not. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more should you buy type videos like this, consider subscribing to my channel. And if you want to see more Spell Saga, I've got even more Spell Saga videos. I've got a neat time-lapse overview where I give you an actual very quick time-lapse playthrough of it while telling you how to play the game as well. And I've also got a pretty quick how to set up video. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helped you out. Until next time, so long, farewell.